Mayor Lansing.
Here.
Alderman Beidler is absent. Alderman Morris.
Here.
Alderman Newman.
Here.
Alderman Rummel.
Here.
Alderman Reisenberg.
Here.
Alderman Preschlack.
Here.
Alderman Moreno.
Here.
Alderman Bushman.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Will you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item is Mayor's remarks. I have really one item, but I might preface this by saying that it's nice to see the first harbinger of spring in Lake Forest. I've personally declared winter over. I know there will be weather events here and there, but the sun is higher in the sky and brighter, and I think we can all look forward to spring soon. The first item I wanted to mention was early voting begins. Let me start over again. Early voting for April 2nd, consolidated election. There are many sites for all Lake County voters, and Lake Forest City Hall, where we are sitting this evening, has already started its voting site hours today, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 p.m., Saturday 9 to 2, and closed on Sunday. Any questions, you can contact the Lake County Clerk's office or the city clerk here in Lake Forest. But I personally have found this a wonderful service. It's sort of no excuse voting. Everyone has many chances to do it. With that, I'll turn it over to Jason Wisher, the city manager.
Thank you very much, Mayor and members of council. Good evening. I also have just one quick update for the audience and for anyone who may be viewing from home tonight, and that is to announce that the city has scheduled its annual spring ward meetings. Those meetings are being held from April 23rd through June 6th. And for those who are unfamiliar, the ward meetings are a wonderful opportunity for residents to interact with their local aldermen, as well as learn a little bit about what's going on in the community. And so looking at the specific schedule, beginning on Tuesday, April 23rd, Ward 2 meeting will be held at the Gorton Community Center. The Ward 4 meeting will be held Thursday, May the 9th at Fire Station 2. The Ward 1 meeting will be held on Tuesday, May 28th at Gorton Community Center. And the Ward 3 meeting will be held Thursday, June the 6th, also at Gorton. And we'll be sure to have all of that information up on the city's webpage. All of those meetings begin at 7 p.m. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. If not, that concludes my report.
Well, thank you. That's our annual opportunity to have citizens meet with council members, and they're always productive. The staff puts a lot of work into preparing a presentation that covers so many city issues. There's also many city staff present at those meetings. And over the years, I've noticed that problems get solved at those meetings, actually. Thank you. We have a short agenda this evening. The next item is opportunity for citizens to address the council on non-agenda items. I have one request from a member of the audience who wishes to speak. Marina, please come forward, identify yourself, and if you will.
Mayor Lansing and City Council members, I'm Marina Purrier. I'm here on behalf of Elevo Farm Foundation, commenting on the minutes of the March 4th meeting. To begin with, the gentleman that spoke who lives on Middle Fork Drive, his name is Connor Walsh, not Carl. We are puzzled as to how minutes can be approved for the special use permit, which was approved at your last meeting, yet the special use permit isn't attached or modified as yet that we are aware of. How is it that a document can be approved that no one has seen? Does it reflect the suggested changes and clarifications specifically? We're curious about that. Also, the motion that Alderman Reisenberg made included number 2, to update the procedures and overall coordination of activities in the area, and number 3, direct staff and PPL to re-examine financial aspects of Elua Farm Foundation. Yet, when we have inquired to staff and council members looking for dates, staff and council members looking for dates and opportunities to sit down, requests have gone unanswered, unresponded to on March 6th and March 8th, and further, when Alex Hodges, the president, reached out on the 14th, he was dismissed until after the 1st of April. To be clear, also, we have not agreed to scrapping the 2014 operating agreement, nor have we agreed to the modifications proposed. And we sent a letter explaining our position on that on March 11th, and that too has gone unanswered. We did put forth a possible solution to you all on February 20th, and that has gone unanswered. The stonewalling has got to stop. We have tried to be patient, but this puts us in a very difficult position and further impacts our bottom line, which ultimately will impact your bottom line. I would ask that the council and its various people that have been assigned to work on this make it a priority to answer and acknowledge emails, and further set some dates so that we can work on this immediately. I sincerely appreciate your time and your dedication to making Lake Forest a wonderful place to live and recreate, and further appreciate you are all volunteers, as are we, and time is precious. We're just looking for direction and to keep the ball moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. We're all very conscious of Elua Farm and the series of steps that were begun some time ago to update the special use permit and then also get to the operating agreement. And it's complicated. There's a lot of issues, and there's a lot of constituents out there, separate ownerships of land and so forth. There's a lot to consider. I understand the frustration about getting things done, but we've got to be methodical about it, because the finalization of the special use permit and what flows from it, like the operating agreement, will be in existence for a very long period of time, when so many of the uses out there have been, been evolving, and some things are in transition and so forth. So, understood. There are people focused on it. Is there any comment from the staff?
Well, I would
We're
only,
very conscious of trying to get this done, but it's going to take a while.
yeah, no question, and I would only offer as a point of clarification that I've been in contact in the last couple of days with the foundation president and scheduling a time for us to sit down and move this forward, and I would only echo your sentiments that moving this forward does remain a priority for staff as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council this evening? Seeing none, I'll go to the main item of business, which is omnibus, items for omnibus vote consideration. There's 14 this evening here. And I'm required to read all these. So. Number 1, approval of the March 4th, 2019 City Council minutes. There were some Scrivener errors, the corrections to which are at our place here. 2, consideration of a recommendation from the Public Works Committee in support of an ordinance amending section 135.108 titled Noise, generally, of the City of Lake Forest. This would be final approval of the ordinance. Number 3, authorization to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Rockland Fire Protection District for a no-cost lease for a period of 10 years for the ladder truck that is covered by a FEMA grant. Number 4, request for City Council to affirm and ratify an agreement with Hanson Professional Services for Phase 1 professional design services for the Telegraph Metro Station Train Bridge project for $281,421. 5, request for the City Council to waive the bidding process for the Police Department to purchase furniture from the Frank Cooney Company that will be used to furnish the newly renovated police department records and community areas. Acceptance of the donation of a police squad car and related equipment from the Lake Forest Police Foundation for the establishment of a police canine program. Approval to extend the city's office supplies contract with Warehouse Direct through May 31st, 2020, with the option for additional extension as determined by the Suburban Purchasing Cooperative of the Northwest Municipal Conference. Number 8, waive the bidding process and approve the replacement of 3 marked police vehicles included in the 2020 fiscal budget for capital equipment to the Suburban Purchasing Cooperative's low bidder, Curry Motors, in the amount of $103,305. Number 9, award of bid for the replacement of 3 refuse scooters for the sanitation section to Honda Northwest in the amount of $51,450, included in the fiscal year 2020 capital equipment budget. 10, approval of a Public Works Committee recommendation to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Loverde Construction for the Deer Path Golf Course water main extension for an amount not to exceed $169,000. Number 11, award of bid for the fiscal year 2020 concrete curb and sidewalk replacement project to Schroeder and Schroeder for a not-to-exceed amount of $75,000. Number 12, award of bid for the 2019 MPI crack sealing contract to Patriot Pavement Maintenance in the amount of $30,000. 13, request approval to waive the bid process and participate in the renewal year of Lake County's Morton Rock salt bid at a price not to exceed $64.88 per ton for the purchase of 3,600 tons for winter 2019-2020, including a reserve for fiscal year 20 and/or fiscal year 21. Mike Thomas never does anything in small amounts, does he? Yes. 14, special event approval of the recurring Class A special events permits proposed for 2019. I have one comment I want to make on item number 4. In regards to item 4 in tonight's agenda omnibus, I want to provide a few brief remarks for the benefit of tonight's audience. As stated in the council packet write-up, and I want to emphasize this, the council has already approved an agreement with Hanson Engineering for the Phase 1 design work in question. That work will be paid in full by the state of Illinois, in the same way the state of Illinois has paid for work previously for this design. Importantly, the approval of tonight's request does not represent inherent support or rejection of the broader underpass project, pedestrian underpass project. Rather, Phase 1 design work only represents a gathering of the facts that are necessary to provide answers to certain unknowns regarding the feasibility, scope, and cost of an underpass for pedestrian safety. This information is essential to ensuring a future council can conduct in a thoughtful, informed way the merits of a pedestrian safety underpass. That discussion will occur at a future date with the council, and the intent of tonight's vote is to complete gathering the facts for an engineering study paid for by the state. As we do with omnibus vote items, if a council member would like to remove any for separate vote, please say so. Failing that, if anyone wants to, has any particular questions or thoughts in short form, we can go through this at that time now.
I have one.
Yes, sir.
It's something that's kind of been bothersome to me for a while, that we have constantly in our omnibus agendas, and it deals with waiving the bidding process. And we constantly use that term, has the bidding process been obtained for proposed goods and services? No. And if not, blah, 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 blah. Well, the fact is all these items, there's about 3 or 4 on here, where we use purchasing cooperatives or consortiums or whatever. We banded together so that we have additional leverage, and then the purchasing coordinators go out and bid it. And we always say, and bid it, though, have we obtained competitive bids? No. We have competitive bids. And quite frankly, I'd like to ask Elizabeth and Jed to put their heads together and, I don't know, amend the ordinance or amend the whatever, because I think it's misleading. Anybody who's uninitiated, kind of comes to here and goes, well, geez, they continue to waive this bidding process. We're not waiving the bidding process. We're go ahead. I made my point, I think.
I'll
yeah.
take you up, Jack.
Okay.
I agree with you completely. I, in fact, brought this subject up formally about 3 or 4 months ago. The wording is misleading.
Right.
Okay? So someone said, gee, it comes from the ordinance. Well, the ordinance doesn't exactly dictate how you say it. Your predecessor, Jason, didn't quite get that done, but I really, Alderman Reisenberg is on a real point. The wording is misleading. It doesn't inform, it disinforms us what's going on in these bidding, or understating the bid, what's going on there. Sure.
Ralph, could we, we've talked about this, and I'd like our city attorney to comment on this.
We had a meeting, and I think it was not, maybe last week or the week before, to discuss the purchasing policy. Changes are in the works.
Okay.
I agree with all the comments that this is not a waiver. You're not waiving competitive bidding if the bidding is done either through a state program or a consortium or some other. It's just terminology. So we have some changes that we want to make to the purchasing policy anyway, and we're also going to make it clearer that if the purchasing process is through another type of bid program, whatever that is, that there's no need to waive. There's also no need to waive if it's something that is, there's an exception to competitive bidding. That's an exception, not a waiver. So I think moving forward, once we get that finished and present
Great.
that and get that
Wonderful.
approved, it'll be a very different process for
Wonderful.
for
It's always
approving.
good to know people are listening.
It is definitely in the works.
Right.
And I would just add, I would anticipate that coming back before the council sometime in April.
Okay, terrific.
I just had one other comment to make. These all show up on this omnibus agenda items, but everyone should rest assured, and I'm speaking more to the public, that these have been vetted through committee already. It's not, because otherwise it looks like we're giving very short
Shrift, yeah,
shrift to
yeah,
these
right,
items.
yeah.
They were thoroughly vetted. A thorough presentation was made of a lot of these items with the Public Works Committee. Mike Thomas does a very thorough job, and other members of the Public Works staff. So I just want to assure everybody that even though it's on the omnibus agenda, that's only based on the fact that the Public Works Committee took a very extensive look at all of these items.
Good point, good point. Any other? Right.
And just to add to that point, the Public Works Committee, does delve very deeply in the competitive bidding process and how we have received the results and the value of the results, and we do look very closely at that. But I agree, the wording could be much better than what it is in the way we handle it here at the council level. I'd like to change the subject. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your comments on item 4. As you know, the project that we're talking about, the pedestrian underpass, is in Ward 4. It's a matter that has had a lot of discussion among my constituents. It's a subject that they've asked a lot of questions for some period of time now. And these questions go to the underlying basic question of the justification for the project. And I recognize that it's before us now on a somewhat technical matter, but before making further comments, I would ask the council, I would make the request that we do remove item 4 for a separate discussion and not have it encumber the vote on the omnibus vote.
Right, for, Now, that's fine. Is that a vote to remove it?
Procedurally, any council member can request removal, and it's removed.
Okay.
And then you'll take action and vote
All
on
right.
the rest, and then do
All
that
right,
one
just
separately.
thank you for the clarification. So we'll remove it and in a few minutes, talk about it. Okay, any other thoughts, comments on the other items? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion to approve the omnibus vote minus number 4.
So moved. Second, whatever.
Can I ask a point of clarification with the minutes as amended as mentioned by
Right,
the city?
yep, exactly, good point. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Morris. Aye. Alderman Newman.
Aye.
Alderman Rummel.
Aye.
Alderman Reisenberg.
Aye.
Alderman Preschlack.
Aye.
Alderman Moreno. Alderman Bushman.
Aye.
7 yea, 0 nay, motion carries.
Thank you. So, with regard to item 4, as stated in the packet, comes before us tonight as an administrative matter to sustain a continuing grant from the state. And I think it goes back several councils, quite some time ago, close on a decade, that it was identified that there had been several deaths out there from pedestrians crossing the tracks, and the idea of an underpass as a matter of passenger safety, all dependent on getting funds, state, federal funds, to make this possible. So I think the whole question arose as a matter of safety, public safety, and it's that first and last. And I think as a council, it's important to respond to that in terms of our trying to gather the facts to pursue the feasibility, getting an answer to the feasibility. Any questions?
I just think this is an administrative matter. It's been discussed. It was approved back in 2017. I don't want to get all down in the weeds on this thing again. This is a non-binding situation on future councils. It's purely an administrative step. I just don't want to get into a deep, dark discussion on this.
Well, until we get everything, there's a lot of aspects to it. Sir?
I recognize that I'm the one that did request, and I guess I would like to expand on my rationale. And there's a lot of reasons why I think it's appropriate we do remove it from the omnibus vote. One is transparency. As I said, this is a topic that is of high interest to many of our constituents. It's something that has had discussion in the past. It's somewhat fortuitous that we have on the agenda this matter, and I recognize that the specific request, whether it's administrative, but it's a process that we've continued, and yes, it goes way back to 2010. But that doesn't mean that we should not think through the question, and that's the question I'm asking. Do we have the right justification? And if we're not sure, is that the question we should be giving, we should first try to answer and direct our attention to, rather than spending more tax dollars on further studies by Hansen Engineering? I've put together a list of many questions relating to safety. And if I could just take a minute, we have questions on what safety steps have already been implemented at this train station, and there have been since 2010. And we should understand what has been done to improve safety there already. We should understand what the statistics are. Over the last decade, one pedestrian accident has occurred there, as best as I know. What's the nature of the danger that we have at the train station? Is it the person who fails to heed the gates being down, the bells sounding, the lights flashing, and fail to look either way to see a train clearly coming? For those of us that can cross to see, whether a train is coming, the bells are flashing, and the gates are down, it's as safe as anything. As a matter of fact, it's more safe to cross the railroad tracks under those circumstances than going 100 feet east and crossing at the intersection of Everett and Waukegan Road, where you're subject to the negligent driver, the distracted driver, the intoxicated driver, the defective brakes, the hazards of the road. Let's compare, what we're talking about of importance for safety, and let's also look to see whether there are other more cost-effective ways if we feel safety steps need to be taken. And where does this really fit on priorities? We talk so much about putting rankings together, trying to put a numerical value and trying to put an assessment as how important this is from a cost-benefit standpoint. And we do that, very religiously. But I don't think we've done it for this. We haven't compared it to our other projects. Is there other ways to spend, $9 million of taxpayers' dollars to provide benefits to our community?
Decision's not before us here.
My question is, and this is what I'm asking the council, should we defer, further action on the Hanson engineering study to spend time trying to get answers to this question? Or what's also important to me is, can we get a process going that we do substantively look at these questions, that we don't waste more time to see whether it's justified or not?
Well, I understand what you say, but from the perspective of 30 years with several deaths, and being aware of the anguish that caused in the city amongst, families, citizens, the city staff, and so forth. No, the safety thing is before us. It's an active rail line with freight and passenger service. Having people cross tracks by foot is a real challenge. There's other aspects of this where you have a pedestrian tunnel like that. It makes people indifferent as to which side of the station they approach it. So it reduces on the margin significantly the number of people who take car trips over the tracks, alleviating traffic. Look, there's a lot more to discuss about this, Ray.
I agree.
How much is it going to cost? And what is the number to put on our ranking system in the capital budget cycle? Is it, in big part, depends on the money and the funding that is available. So I think this is a continuing study of what I think first and last is a safety matter, and I look forward to an earnest discussion throughout the community when we've got the feasibility, the scope, and the cost of the thing better identified. But for all the constituents in the community, the neighbors out there, the people who ride the train to work, the Lake Forest citizens who have businesses here and they have employees coming on that, the other employers in the area. There's a lot of constituents to this question, and there's a lot of facets to it. But we're just moving it down the road, and it's some years away, frankly, in the scheme of things. So I just have a hard time saying no. We're not going to study what has started to be a big safety question answer, trying to get to a big...
This is technically just a request for the city council to affirm and ratify an agreement with Hanson for a design study being paid for by the state of Illinois. That is the extent of the item.
Exactly.
I would like to say, more importantly, this has been fully vetted.
And will be again in the future.
It will likely be, once we have a better informed research. But the fact is, it's been fully vetted. It was approved probably either 8-0 or probably 7-1. It's not 5-4. Clearly, it had overall endorsement by the council. To bring it back before city council again so that we can discuss it again for an hour, hour and a half is a colossal waste of time.
Thank you. I would just like to add that I'm not enthusiastic about spending money that we don't have and we don't perhaps need to spend, but I do see this as a technical item, And I also believe that usage on that train line is changing. We're testing another series of Metra reverse commuting trains. I was rushed this evening and took a later train than I would have liked, and there was a train coming the other way. And I thought, boy, I hope I can make it across. And fortunately, that train wasn't moving. I couldn't quite tell from the platform to get to my car. But the point being, there's changes happening on that line. And until we can see into the future better and we have the facts and we do the analysis, we don't know what our needs are going to be in the future. So this is a first step toward that path, and it's a no-cost step for the city, technically. There's a timing issue, and we need to pay for it now and then get reimbursed, but it is a grant. So I'm very enthusiastic about starting the process of understanding the issues. That's what we're here to do.
It's a due diligence step in the process.
So I would echo that. I would also just call our attention to, so we adopted as a council decision-making parameters for the city council on June 18th, 2018. And the first criteria that we have to deliberate on as we're making decisions is that what we vote on should comprise what's in the best long-term interests of Lake Forest citizens. And that's measured in decades. And to vote against a feasibility study that's paid by the state that furthers fact gathering to illuminate on what's in the best interests is completely contrary to that. It's non-binding and it's a no-brainer.
Well, thank you. That rail line and the station have been there for 150 years, and it will be there long past the next 150 years. And I think there's a lot of evolution going on, as Alderman Moreno mentioned, and it's just important to be thoughtful in our preparation for taking the right action at the right time, whatever a future council decides.
If I may, Mayor, again, a lot of the issues I appreciate by my fellow council members, and I did want to get a sense as to whether you felt where I was coming out that maybe we should be looking at the underlying basic question before. And yes, they're not maybe city dollars ultimately being spent, but they're taxpayer dollars. And we should have a fiscal responsibility and a mindset to respect that in any event. I do recognize that the majority of council is taking the view that we should be approving this, and I can respect that. And I do appreciate the understanding that the vote on this issue does not in any way be viewed as support for or approval of the underlying project. That is something is going to be forthcoming. But again, I'd appreciate any thoughts or comments as to whether we can move this process along to look at that basic question. Whether the questions that I was asking, can we have a forum? Can we have a workshop? Should we appoint an ad hoc citizen group to look at those questions and to give a report as to, how important is safety? Where does it fit on the priorities? Again, I tried to raise these questions, and I would prefer that we, deal with them sooner rather than later.
Can I make a motion that we move forward?
Second.
We have a second.
Which is
Yes.
fine, we can have further discussion. So I'd like to, I think that Alderman Bushman has asked a question, and I just think it's proper to have a response. His question being, can we start to do a study, or, how are we going to approach looking at this down the road?
Well, yeah, I guess some of this seems so self-evident. First of all, this is something that's not, this thing wouldn't take place for a number of years. And number two, there's a moment when you've really got the facts together, and this engineering is a key piece. What is it going to look like, and how does it work and interact with Westlake Forest, the roads, the traffic aspects of all this, getting some consultants involved and all that sort of thing. So one step at a time, we don't have to do this all. So your point is well taken. Just like everything else we do, it's going to have a thorough look. Any major capital project, it's got a thorough look, and that's gonna take place. But this started as frankly, as a fairly obvious pedestrian safety matter some years ago. I think it needs to be completed because I think the tempo of, passenger service out there is going to increase, one way or another. So we ought to,
If I just made a motion to move forward and it was seconded, why are we regurgitating what we just said before I made the motion?
Well, your motion doesn't stop discussion. It actually brings the matter before the council.
I will accede to the parliamentarians over here.
Mr. Mayor, let me
There's a-
also add, just
Unless
real
there's a
quickly.
motion to call the question, this was just, my understanding was it was just a regular motion, which does allow debate and discussion. If somebody
I
wants
would
to
like
move
to
to call
make
the
the motion,
question.
Julie, pardon me for interrupting you,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I would like to make a motion to call the question. Is there a second?
Yeah, seconded.
Let me point out also that we've got another due diligence item going on at the same time, and it's a 2-year pilot program on additional trains on that line. And I don't think anybody would be in a position to make a decision on this underpass until that study was completed.
Okay, will the clerk please call the roll on the revised motion?
Alderman Morris.
The motion is to
Approve this item.
this question.
Yeah, I don't think it's revised, is it?
Motion was not
What
revised.
is it?
It's what's in the packet. It's to.
Yeah, number 4 in the
It's
packet.
number 4 on the end.
Approve the number 4. Yes.
Yeah, excuse me.
Thank you.
I didn't hear what he said.
Aye.
Aye, I'm sorry. Alderman Newman.
Aye.
Alderman Rummel.
Aye.
Alderman Reisenberg.
Aye.
Alderman Preschlack.
Aye.
Alderman Moreno.
Aye.
Alderman Bushman.
Abstain.
That's a no. It's actually, so it's 6 yay, 1 abstention, motion carries.
Thank you very much. There being no further agenda items, may there be a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
We need an executive
Oh,
session.
gosh, forgot. Wait a minute. Did I get that? This is a late agenda item. May,
Need some help with this one?
yeah, I don't, or is it in the,
It's in the agenda.
okay, I'm sorry.
It's in the
Sorry. Just take a second here. Last item is may I have a motion to go into executive session pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2 C11? The council will be discussing threatened or pending litigation.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, roll call.
Roll call.
Alderman Morris.
Aye.
Alderman Newman.
Aye.
Alderman Rummel.
Aye.
Alderman Reisenberg.
Aye.
Alderman Preschlack.
Aye.
Alderman Moreno.
Aye.
Alderman Bushman.
Aye.
7 yea, 0 nay, motion carries.
Thank you. So we are adjourned into executive session. We have no further business. We'll adjourn back into regular session solely for the purpose of ending council deliberations this evening.